Hello Pilots and welcome back to this faction breakdown of the Scum and Villainy. This is part 2 and it's brought to you by Out of Arc Gaming. As always, my name is Phil. So we're going to finish off the standard ships that you can get for Scum and Villainy, and then in a later video we'll look at the extended ships that you can get. But let's jump straight back into this. So first up we have the M3A Interceptor. This little ship is fantastic, very well known within the Scum faction. Not used all that often, but I tell you what, it can be an absolute godsend when you've got it in your squadron. Now, general roles for this is going to be that filler ship. All of the ships are 3 points at the time of recording, and they have some really good, interesting abilities, and they can do quite a lot with them. So stat line, you're going to get 2 attack, 3 evade, 3 hull and 1 shield. You're going to get focus, evade, target lock and the barrel roll. So a very good action bar there. Now you do get an interesting ability with this, the weapon hardpoint. You can equip 1 cannon, missile or torpedo upgrade. Now it's got quite a fun little dial on there. This ship does like to go fast, so you do get the 1 and 2 hards, you get the 2 through 5 straight, all the banks, you get a 3 and 5k turn, so pretty quick ship, likes to get in and cause some trouble. It's got a good amount of blues on there as well. Now, as I said, the general role for this ship is going to be one of those filler ships in your list. Being 3 points, it's going to be really handy when you're getting close to that upper limit, but some of the abilities these ships have are really good. They're going to be quite nice to combo up with some of your other ships, or just generally, in that true Scum fashion, cause issues for your opponent. Now, a couple of ships I want to have a look at here, because you get quite a good selection actually. First one, we've seen them on the channel quite a few times, is Leighton Ashera, the I3 Cardass Enforcer. Now, after you defend or perform an attack, if the attack missed, gain 1 evade token. So generally quite a nice little ability there, going to give your ship more chance to survive and just cause damage. Again, it's nippy, it can be equipped with some interesting upgrades there with the cannon, missile or torpedo. I really like this ability. It's almost unscum because it's not ripping tokens from other people or just generally causing chaos, but getting that evade token, it's really nice. It's going to protect Leighton quite well there. The other one I want to have a look at is G4R GOR VM, the Initiative 0 tilted droid. Now with this you get the calculate instead of focus. His ability, after you defend, each other ship at range 0 suffers 1 critical damage. Now you're gonna have to be careful with this one. He's not one you're gonna want to fly in a squadron. However, throw him right in the mix and get him in your enemy's face, and he could be causing a lot of issues for your opponent if they forget his ability. This is very typical Scum, and I really like this one. You can just have so much fun with this. But yeah, it's a really good ship. Now, big pro on this ship, it's cheap. We've said it quite a few times, so you can field 1 or 2 of these and not feel bad if they go down. 3 points is quite a good points amount, and being able to equip a cannon, torpedo or missile means that they can actually be really flexible in doing what you want them to do. Sticking a cannon on there, ion cannons are always really good fun, heavy laser cannon, so you've got quite a lot of options there. Its stat line for such a cheap ship is actually really good with those actions as well, so it is not just a filler as we've been saying, but it can actually provide quite an important role. Now, one of the possible downsides on there is that being one of those 3-point ships, you can't really stack it up very high. So that is going to be quite tricky in making sure that you've got the right things on the ship. You can't just go crazy and just add loads of upgrades on there. But all in all, a really good fun ship. You've got a lot of selection on there, so definitely worth having a look at. Next up we have the modified TIE Fighter, otherwise known as the Mining Guild TIE Fighter. This is the Scum variant, and it's pretty iconic from Rebels, very well known. It's quite easy to spot on the board in the fact that it's got bright yellow accenting and the cutout in the wing there. So quite an interesting variation for the TIE Fighter. Now, having a quick look at its stats, again, pretty much exactly the same as the TIE Fighter. You get the 2 attack, 3 evade, 3 hull. You get focus, you get evade, and you get the barrel roll. Now, this is where it takes a slight different turn to the regular TIE Fighter. You get the notch stabilizers ability. While you move, you ignore asteroids. So you need to make sure you're clearing them, but this is actually going to be really handy for you to ignore some of those obstacles and just jump straight across. You do get a slight variation in the dial as well. So you get pretty much all of the same moves, except you lose the 4K turn and your 5 straight becomes red. So a few differences there compared to the Empire TIE Fighter, however, not too dissimilar. Now, again, similar to the M3A, this ship is probably going to be a bit of a filler ship. You're not really going to be taking it for the massive punch that you would expect from Scum ships. However, there are quite a few interesting pilots on there that do have some cool abilities. But generally, this is going to be a filler ship. Could fly them in mini swarms, possibly, but there are, I would say, better ships to be flying in a swarm for the Scum. Now, one pilot I do want to point out here is AF4. I believe that's how you pronounce it, the I3 Vengeful Survivor. Now, this ship goes slightly counter to what I just said a moment ago. This ship is your medium and large base stalker ship. While you defend or perform an attack, if the enemy ship is a larger size than you, roll 1 additional die. So this one is actually quite an interesting ship. It's only 3 points as well, so it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, and has a pretty good loadout actually for a TIE Fighter. But that ability does mean that this is going to be quite handy at chasing down some of those larger ships, especially if, for instance, you can get this in range 1 of a large base ship. That's a 4 dice attack you're going to get with this, and that is going to be really good. And again, you lose that 5 white straight and the K-turn, but moving through asteroids and ignoring them is going to be really handy there. Now, positives and negatives for this, very similar to the TIE Fighter in that it's got no shield, it doesn't have a great attack unless you have specific pilots, but it is again cheap, it's a great filler ship, and that notch stabilizers ability does actually set it apart from the TIE Fighter slightly, so you will actually find that quite handy. Just remember, it's only while you move, and it is only asteroids, so don't go trying to fly over glass clouds or debris fields, because they will still mess you up, and we know how painful they are in 2.5. Now time for the latest ship to be added to the Scum's already incredible roster of options. We have the Rogue class Starfighter. Now, this one is one of those dual faction ships for the Scum and Separatists, but again, we are looking purely at the Scum variant. Now, this is quite an interesting little ship. You get 2 red dice, 2 evades, 5 hull, and 2 shields. An absolutely crazy action bar with focus to red boost, focus to red barrel roll, evade to red barrel roll, target lock, and a red boost. You also get what is quite an insane ability, dead to rights. while you perform an attack, if the defender is in your bullseye, defense dice cannot be modified using green tokens. Now we see this on the Kimigila, and it's great to see another ship really using that bullseye arc there, but that is incredible, especially for some of the upgrades you can actually put on this ship. Now it's got a very loaded dial as well, lots of moves on there. So you have your 1 and 2 hards, you have your 3 hard, which is red, all of the banks, 2 to 5 straight. You get the 2 Talon roll and the 5k turn. A good amount of blues on there as well, so you can feel free to be using those red moves and they're not going to impact you too much on there. Now again, quite a new ship to the game, so can be difficult to really see what its role is going to be, but so far from my experience this has definitely been quite a heavy hitter with the cannons. And stacking it up with some interesting elicits on there as well to cause some extra fun. Now this pack did come with the proton cannon, which again is a bullseye only cannon, but another good one to have on here is the heavy laser cannon, because if you can line those up in the bullseye, your dead to rights ability will trigger, and if you stuck something like marksmanship on there on the Talon as well, that is going to be crazy. We've seen Cad Bane on the table with proton cannons and marksmanship, just turning everything to crits basically. It is brutal. Speaking of Cad Bane, he is one of the 2 pilots we want to quickly pull up for you. So I4, Infamous Bounty Hunter. Now he has the ability, after you perform an attack that hits, you may spend 2 charges to transfer 1 of your non-lock red or orange tokens to the defender. Now this is going to be a really good ability to have actually. So picture the scene, you've just done a 2 Talon roll and done an absolutely amazing shot against your opponent. You're stressed, your opponent isn't. You're thinking, right, what am I going to be doing next turn? Spend 2 charges, whatever you want, and then your opponent suddenly has to rethink his next move, as they may have actually lined themselves up in a really nice position to do a Talon or a sloop or a K-turn, and suddenly that option is no longer available to them. Really good ability, and Cad Bane's loadout is incredible. At the time of recording you can put 18 points worth of upgrades on there, and let me tell you, that can take you a long way. Now the other pilot we want to have a quick look at is Victor Hell. Now those of you that have been playing Scum for a while, especially the extended, will know him from the Kirax, a fantastic ship that I can't wait to actually get re-released. But his ability, after you defend, if you did not roll exactly 2 defense dice, the attacker gains 1 stress token. Now it's harder to trigger now, as you used to be able to stick stealth device on there and pretty much automatically trigger this all the time, but this is again another sneaky ability. If someone's taken a shot at you at range 3 or range 1 or 2 and they've managed to get a strain on you, them suddenly getting a stress as well is going to give them a little moment to think, is it going to be worth taking a shot at Victor Hell? Am I in a position to get out of this later on? So giving them a stress when you do not roll exactly 2 defense dice is a surprisingly good ability. Now pros and cons of this ship. So far this ship does seem like really good fun. You've got a good amount of health on there for a small base ship, a really nice dial, a heavily stacked action bar which you can make slightly better for you, but it is really good on there. So far it's hard to really find a proper negative on there. Small base ship with only 2 evades can be a bit tricky, but you've got the health there to counteract that. I really like this ship. I think it looks really cool as well, so definitely worth having a look at the Rogue class Starfighter. Next up, another classic Scum ship that is seen in some of the other factions. We have the Z-95-AF4 Headhunter. Again, Like some of the other ships we've already mentioned here, this is a great little filler ship, very cheap in points, but it is going to do the job that you are looking for. So stat line is exactly the same as the Rebel variant, so 2 red dice, 2 evades, 2 hull, 2 shields. You're going to get focus, target lock, and the red barrel roll on there. No inbuilt ship abilities with this one. It is basically just your scrap together fighter that they've managed to salvage and throwing out there. The dial, again, exactly the same as the Rebel Z-95, but a really good fun dial, mini Interceptor style there. Your only reds on there is the 3 and 4k turn. Now again, generally with this ship, it's going to be a filler ship. You're not really going to be looking to use this as a swarm of ships. Scum don't really tend to do swarms like the Empire do. You can obviously look at doing these as a swarm, but they do go down quite quickly. Now, notable pilot I want to pull out here, not his usual ship, but we really like Bosk. In the Z-95, he is going to be quite fun. I4, while you perform a primary attack, after the neutralize results step, you may spend 1 crit to add 2 hit results. So I know this ability tends to work better on the YV666, but you do get the option to add 2 talents on here. So you could be looking to add crits on there with marksmanship. It's just a really good ability and very, very sneaky to push 2 damage through rather than a crit. So we really like that, and in quite a nippy ship of the Z-95, that is going to be good fun. Now, we mentioned it before with the Rebels. Positive for this, it's cheap. You can literally stick this into your squadron to fill in the gaps in there. You can add a few cool talents on there. It's quite nippy, it's good fun. But 2 evades with just 4 health does mean that it can pop quite quickly. So it's not got really the staying power that other ships of this similar size would be looking at, but all in all, the Z-95 is still really good fun to fly, so definitely worth having a look at. Next up, another ship we have already spoken about in the Rebel faction. We have the Hawk 290 light freighter. Again, this is quite a staple ship. You see it more often in the Scum faction than you do in the Rebel faction, and with 2 of the pilots we're going to bring up later, there is a good reason for that. Now, exactly the same stats as you would find on your Rebel variant. You're going to get your 2 turret attack, your 2 evades, 3 hull, and 2 shields. Your action bar is focus to red rotate, target lock to red rotate, red boost, white rotate, and the red jam action. This ship in the hands of the Scum is very sneaky. There's a lot of abilities in there that are going to support your squadron by ruining your opponent's day. A lot of token stealing, a lot of dice reduction. Generally, this is going to be a bit of a pain for your opponents when they come up against this. You're probably going to try and hide this ship behind some of your heavy hitters as well, so you can just utilize its ability as much as possible. Now, with the 2.5 updates to the points, some of these ships do suffer a little bit by not being able to include the Mouldy Crow on there. There's only 2 pilots, I believe, from the Scum that can actually take Mouldy Crow on there, so it can be a little bit tricky, but all in all, still a really good ship. Now, 2 pilots I want to have a look at here. We've already kind of touched on their abilities, but first things first, we have Kanan Jarrus, the Lost Padawan, I3. You get access to the Force with Kanan. Now, his ability, for those of you that have seen our Season 2 of Flight Academy or the recent South Coast series videos, will be familiar with this. While you or a ship in your turret defends, you may spend 1 force. If you do, the attacker rolls 1 fewer attack die. I mean, that's that's just a crazy ability. It's really powerful, really good, especially if you get the right situation. If you have someone who has an incredible range one shot, or they've lined up advanced proton torpedo shot or proton cannon, and suddenly they're going from having all those dice to one less. Even though it's only one dice, it's still going to hurt. It's still going to be quite painful. In fact, even if you have a ship that's only got a 2 dice attack and you reduce that to 1, that's going to be quite painful for them as well. Really good ability, especially if you stick a force user crew on Kanan. You can actually fit the single crew pip maul on there, giving you 2 force, which means you can actually do this twice. Really nice to hide in behind your big ships. The other ship we want to have a look at is Payload Godali, another I3. At the start of the engagement phase, you may choose one enemy ship in your firing arc at range 0 to 2. If you do, transfer 1 focus or evade token from that ship to yourself. Now, I can confirm I hate this ability when it's used against me. It is so very good, so very annoying, and I had a game where my opponent was using Paylob, had the Mordicron on there, so essentially had a 180 arc with it, and he just kept stripping my tokens, and the worst bit was he would use them against me, and it was very frustrating. Such a classic Scum ability, just incredible, absolutely incredible, so annoying but so good. Definitely worth checking that one out there, as well as some of the other great pilots you have on the Hawk. Now, again with the Hawk, you've got your classic pros and cons on there. Great abilities with the Scum faction. They are going to be causing a lot of grief for your opponent, and you're going to have great fun with them. 2 dice attack, if you haven't got or can't equip the Molly Crow, is going to be a bit tricky. The dial isn't that great. You can't turn around very quickly with this one, and if you do get stressed, you're generally going to be going straight or very slow to get rid of that stress. Having the turret does make it a lot better, because you can obviously stick that in the rear or the side if you are doing your slow turnaround, so that's not too bad on that. But all in all, this variant of the Hawk is very sneaky, very frustrating, and very good fun. Now for the final standard ship that you can get currently for the Scum and Villainy faction, we have one of my favourite ships actually for Scum. Is the YV-666 Light Freighter. The space brick, the party bus, whatever you want to call it, I really like this ship. I think it's good fun. It's an interesting ship to fly, and it's definitely going to be causing your opponent a few issues on there. Now, for a stat line, it has 3 attack in the forward 180 arc. So this is really good at catching your opponents by surprise there. 1 evade, large base ship, kind of what you expect. 9 hull and 3 shields, so quite a healthy ship. You do get for the action bar focus, coordinate, and target lock. So no repositions for this ship, but then again, it is essentially a flying brick, so what would you expect? Now, for its dial, don't expect it to turn around very quickly. It does get the red stop. It has the 2 red hard and 3 white hard, all the banks, 1 through 4 straight. Again, its blues are limited to the 1 to 3 straight and the 1 bank. So once this gets stressed, it's not really going to be moving very quickly to get rid of the stress token there, unfortunately. Now, as a general role, this ship is going to be really good with sticking crew on there and being a very heavy hitter. That 180 arc is actually surprisingly good. You can do a lot of damage with that, catching people where they don't quite expect it. They think they've just dodged you slightly, then suddenly they're actually in that final little bit of your arc and you're still catching them. It's obviously got a lot of health, so it is going to be able to get into a bit of a fight and hopefully not go down too quickly. Now, one of the pilots I want to have a quick look at for this one is Moralo Eval, the I-4 criminal mastermind. I think it's got one of the coolest abilities in the game. If you would flee, as in going off the board edge, you may spend 1 charge. If you do, place yourself in reserves instead. At the start of the next planning phase, you place yourself within range 1 of the edge of the player area that you fled from. So, immediately bringing yourself back, and you could fly off on your board edge in turn 1 on like the left hand side, and then come back up your opponent's side there, so you don't actually have to come back in the exact same spot. It is really interesting ability, really quite handy, and you can do that twice as well, so again, quite a fun ability there. Also protects you a little bit if you are running it quite dangerous towards the edge of the board. Now, there is another really cool thing that you do get with the YV666. It's only available for Bosk and Lazrazi, but you do get the Houndstooth ability, which allows you to dock 1 Z-95 Headhunter to you. And that Z-95 Headhunter is the Nashtar pup. Now, it's a Z-95, so it has all of the stats, dial and action bar of the Z-95. However, it does have the ability, you can deploy only via emergency deployment, and you have the name, initiative, pilot ability, and ship charges of the friendly destroyed Houndstooth. So, this is your little emergency ship that can just dump out at the end. Really good fun, especially when you're looking at Bosk's ability, which is the same as on the Z-95 as well, and also Lazrazi's ability. So that's going to be a nice little fun one there to have as well, if you can trigger that. And also, if you've got the Nashtar pup from the 2.0 version of the box, it's a really cool paint job as well. But guys, that's going to round out the Scum and Villainy faction breakdown for you. Some really good ships in there, an absolute wealth of options for you, and I hope that if you don't fly Scum very often or come up against them, this is going to give you a few tips and hints there. We've thoroughly enjoyed doing this one. We're going to be looking at some of the other factions very soon, but in the meantime guys, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. There's a link for our Patreon in the description below, where we do have new stuff going up all the time. In the meantime, we will see you next time.